Imagine you just started your board and you're presented with the scenario. How do you begin? Naturally, you start by reading, but then you turn to Lucidchart. And now you're looking at the blank canvas of Lucidchart and you will see the various default shape palettes. You know you have to crank out the entire solution, complete with various diagrams. What is the first thing you do in Lucidchart? You remember your training and you start with the system landscape, then followed by data model, data migration, DevOps, and finally identity flows. Let me show you the most efficient way of diagramming under time pressure. This is an approach that I developed and successfully used on 2 boards, one of which was my 2-section retake where I only had 1.5 hours to complete my solution. Let's go. Okay, so over here, we're just going to label it as SL. For system landscape because you don't have the time to type out the whole thing. Here for data model we'll put DM. For data migration, which is also DM by the way, we'll put MIG. And the final one we'll label as DevOps. And for identity flows, let's just put SSO because that's universal. Knowing that on a Mac as well as on a PC, you can navigate between those tabs, as you can see at the bottom, using the page up and page down keys. So let's start out with the system landscape first. So there's a difference between this kind of shape and this kind of shape. Although both are rectangles, the one that comes from the flowchart palette has the word process in it, so that means you have to overwrite it, which may be useful, but maybe not, and we'll see why. So this one, of course, if you drag it from shapes, does not have any text in it. So since we know that we're going to have text in this particular rectangle, so we're going to drag this over here, hold the left shift key, and this way you can expand the rectangle and it will maintain its aspect ratio. Now if you don't want to do that, you just simply delete that, hit backspace, and drag it out and make it more horizontal. So at this point, we know that this is Salesforce, so we don't have to explain that. But what is important to notice is that we're going to put down my domain. But my domain is in the center, so instead of doing that, we would click over here to the alignment button and move this down to the left. Okay, so now you're ready to go with Salesforce. Then it's a good idea to actually put a line of demarcation at the bottom, which will become your firewall. So instead of selecting the line from here, or not knowing what to do, you just simply hit the letter L on your keyboard and you'll be presented with these crosshairs. So I would say go about 4 squares down, so like so, and you will end up with an arrow. So if you don't like the arrow, of course, you can get rid of it over here, or you can just leave it alone and that will be just fine. So I do recommend that you make this arrow fairly long. Why? Because you'll need the space. Okay, so make it like so. Forget that there's an arrow over there. Click where you would like to insert your text and just put FW for firewall. Simple enough, right? So now you've got your cloud systems above the firewall and the on-premise systems which are going to be below the firewall. What are the other shapes that you're going to be using? So one way to do this would be to just add the shapes like so. And well, see what's happening is now that these shapes are getting added right on the firewall because that's where you left off. You probably don't want that. So let's add one and drag it over here. And now the future ones are going to be ending up right next to it. So if I know that I'm going to be using these certain shapes and I got used to using those, so I'm just going to put them all down here so that I don't forget something. That's basically one way to do it. Then you do this enough times, you know, click, 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 and you're done. So over here, then what I do is I know that this hexagon is going to be my ESB, always. By the way, you see what happened here? So the line got divided because you put ESB on top of it and you end up with an arrow. So at this point, what you want to do is probably get rid of that. So that's something that you can do as a write down a mental note. Okay, so these shapes also, perhaps you put them a little too high up, so now you have to move. With time and practice, you will know exactly where to place your shapes, and also where to move them. So this one is going to be my ETL. And what I'll do next is I'm just going to change this out so I don't have to worry about the arrow. So I'll just put the endpoint as none. And so over here now I have to just basically connect Salesforce to ESB. But at this point, there's not a convenient blue circle that shows up on Salesforce. So what can I do? I can go to a smaller shape and just draw a line to Salesforce, and that will be just fine. So over here, I will put down security, MTLS, hit shift, enter, that moves to the next line. And JotBearer is, well, JotBearer token flow is the identity flow that I'm going to use to connect to it, but it's enough to just say MTLS JotBearer. Select all, so that's a command A, because again, you're on the Mac, and this is all you get, by the way, on the board is a Mac. So if you have a Mac, that's great. If not, there's other ways to do it. You can buy one, or you could borrow one, or you can even use a Mac in the cloud type situation. Okay, so anyway, connect A to select all of this, and create another line. Click on the line, so here you add that. Same text, and here you want to also add bulk API 2.0. So that's going to be important for ETL. And I just recommend leaving this text alone like so. Again, we're going for function over form in this case because it's more important to tell the story than to worry about how pretty it's going to look. It just needs to be understandable. Okay, so that's the very basics. So you've got your cloud side with Salesforce, and you've got your middleware set up, and now what else do you do? So most likely there's going to be some sort of a customer community or partner community. So what I do is I'll just drag this little rectangle like so and put in CC. So then what I usually do is have my customer community people or external users actually interact with Salesforce using Mobile Publisher. And so MoPub would be just fine, just to put that. Now, if I wanted to duplicate this, I just select these shapes, hit Command D, and now you can drag that over here. So the one thing I didn't select was a line, that's fine. So and I'll change that to PC, so this will be for partner communities. So as you know, the more communities you have, and if you're going to keep them separate, then you got to give them a different Mobile Publisher app. There's definitely going to be different one because these are partner community people and these are customer community people. Okay, so what else do I have on the left-hand side? So over here, this is going to be my identity provider. So I personally like Okta, so I'm just going to go with that. And for Okta, I'm going to draw a line to Salesforce, and this is going to be my SAML 2.0 because that's the story I'm telling. So then I'm going to create another line over here, and this one's going to be different because I do want an endpoint with an arrow, and this is going to be my skim 2.0. And it's okay sometimes to, make a mistake. You can also always fix the text, but if that takes too long, just abandon it and keep moving. So skim 2.0 is to provision and deprovision. And the reason I'm using an arrow, so it's always one directional. The SAML 2.0 is bidirectional. Okay, so over here, I'm going to have my Active Directory, AD. We can also put LDAP for good measure here. Not every scenario is going to have this, but chances are that it might. And so then I'll just, now this is a decision element, so that's why you end up with a yes. If you start from the decision element. If you don't, then you will end up with no particular line. But again, so over here you've got another line, which I don't like to overlap. So you can move it like so, but you see what happens, it becomes a little unwieldy sometimes. So either you know where to drag it from, or another option would be to just basically proceed from LDAP. So you have a word yes. Simple enough, you just get rid of the yes and you're done over there. Okay, so Hard disk, what's the deal with that? The deal with this is now going to be my data warehouse. So it's a hard disk. You can call it a database. It doesn't matter. So you can use this shape. You can use this shape. This is just the shape that I'm choosing. Okay. And so what I'm doing is then I'm connecting my ETL to the data warehouse and my ESB as well. So to just simplify things without having too many bands in these lines, I'm just going to drag them like so. But there's no right or wrong way. It's just basically what works for you. So I know that I'm going to be connecting data warehouse to the ESB so that I can virtualize the data. Well, at this point, I should probably draw another connection over here and show that this is going to be Salesforce Connect. Okay, and as you can see, I forgot that my caps lock was on, and that's okay. I'm just going to leave it alone like this just to keep going. Okay, so this is my basic landscape. As you can see, you can always build this without really worrying about reading the scenario. But I do recommend reading the scenario first so you don't do the extra work. And plus, you can start reading the scenario, getting familiarized with it, and trying to think through the solution as you're building this. So you're basically preloading the information in your head, and then you're going to go with the familiar. Okay, so no analysis paralysis, just start diagramming because you don't have time to really think about this type of stuff. This is why you want to practice ahead of time. So here's my basic landscape. A couple more things over here. So let's say you've got your custom community people and they need to use single sign-on. So we'll put the single sign-on over here, or you can actually just put social login, or just put SL over here. Okay, that would be for the actual process, but wouldn't it be easier just to put Facebook? And so if you're going to use Facebook to get them to log in to the customer community, great. So let's do that. So we'll put this line over here, and in the middle you put OIDC. So that's OpenID Connect identity flow that you're going to be using to get these people to log in. Now, what about for mobile publisher? Well, for mobile publisher, it's the auth code with Pixie, so primary key for code exchange. So instead, that's too much to worry about. So you put Pixie in here. Even though it's mobile publisher and you don't really control which kind of flow it would be using, but suppose you could, so you would go with this Pixie situation. So there you go. You've got yourself the various identity flows. So you've got jot bearer, SAML, you've got skim REST endpoints, OIDC, Pixie. That's already a lot you can talk about. And over here you can have on-premise systems. So let's say that there's going to be ERP, and ERP is going to be virtualized into, or not virtualized, but let's say integrated with Salesforce using the ESB. If you need to also migrate some stuff in and out of ERP, you can draw a line like so. Let's say you have some kind of a cloud database. So that could be, let's say, call it a governance database. So that's going to be over here. And it's also going to be integrated using ESB. Fantastic. Now, what if you have something that is a point-to-point connection? That's fine. So you can say AWS S3, or better yet, just S3 over here. And you'll have, again, like you see, you can't find the little blue circle where you need it. So what you can do is just come over here, same thing. And let's say S3 link is going to be the App Exchange app. And that's how it's going to connect to Salesforce. There's your point-to-point connection already. And so the next thing what you want to do is start typing. Now, if you want to put text inside this box, it's going to default to the text that's already there because that's something that's named. So instead, what you want to do is drag this text over here and change it to the top left. And then basically you start putting down your various Salesforce apps. So what do? Sales, Service, Scheduler, CRMA, CRM Analytics, and let's see, Service Cloud Voice, all the various Salesforce clouds and various products that Salesforce offers would go on the left. Then you just basically select, again, Command D, because Command D is one operation instead of Command C and Command V, copy paste. So this is called duplicate. All right, so on the right, you're going to put your AppExchange apps. So let's say you have S3 link because you're just referencing it on the right. Okay, great. Then let's say we put FormStack or DocuSign. You can put you don't want to put all of them. I'm just kind of spitballing here, and so on and so forth. So those are the various AppExchange apps that you're going to add over here. If you want to move them around, that's fine. So now you have a somewhat a bare bones but fairly complete system landscape already. And so this should help you get started. If you also would like to use the various, if you want to go the extra mile basically, and you want to say which APIs you're going to be using to integrate various systems, so you can put that over here. So if you don't know, if the scenario doesn't specify a particular API, so just default to REST. That's going to be easier to work with and to explain. Otherwise, okay, so if it's not REST, then I could just put SOAP, for instance, okay? So that's how that would work. So at any rate, at this point, you have a really good starting point. You have a system landscape that basically just came out of your head. And I would say this is probably a good 80% of it. But is this everything? No, absolutely not. So now you just have to basically mention which systems are you going to be adding, retiring, or partially retiring, or retaining. So let's get a little more creative here. So let's say that we have a legacy Salesforce over here. And what if you have more than one? So if you have more than one of something, so first you create a rectangle like so, duplicate, and just basically drag one on top of the other. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty. So if you really are trying to be cognizant of this, what you would want to do, instead of creating it like so, you just basically, okay, so you duplicate, remove the text, then you duplicate this again, drag on top, so now you've got the universal symbol for many, and then you put your text, and this way you have nothing behind it. So then if you want to go even further, because you're going to be moving this around, just select both of them and do a Command G. So Command G is going to group them. So now you've got the legacy Salesforce over here. Well, what are you doing with that? Are you integrating or not? Obviously, you're not going to necessarily just, well, let's say you use Salesforce to Salesforce connected, and maybe you would want to connect it directly like so, but chances are you won't be doing that. So if you're going to be retiring it, so you would probably want to minimize the number of lines. So I would put that over here and just basically draw a connection between that and the ETL, and this you can label as migration. But then now you have to explain why you have extra Salesforce over here. So this is now what I would do if I were you. So you want to type in something, right? So this would be new, okay? Now you've made it bold, so put an X, retire, okay? Retain. By the way, if you actually want to simulate a little bit of stress and a little bit of nerves, do this while recording yourself. It will happen naturally. So it's basically I'm recording, I'm having to think about a bunch of stuff, and obviously I'm going to make some mistakes. So, but that's okay. So that's how you get used to it. Partial retirement, you can put it like so, and now you've got yourself some of these some of this text that you can actually reuse. So let's say you have new, you're introducing ESB, fantastic. Now you're going to be introducing the ETL again, so you put that over here. Let's say you are already keeping the existing data warehouse, and this is going to be a retired LDAP, so you're going to be retiring that. Then basically what do you do with this? Well, you probably need to delete this line because that's not going to be necessary anymore. But you're definitely retaining the ERP, so you put that as retain over here. And so we started with legacy Salesforce. You can retire that from here. And whatever is new, so you will put that over here. You can be very careful about this. You can also be very, very thorough, so you can put new everywhere. But I would say if you forget, that's fine too. So you can actually just speak about this, and that actually matters more what you say than what you put down on paper. This is supposed to be an aid. This is supposed to be helping you tell the story. Okay, but you're not going to get the points if you just show the diagram and say absolutely nothing. So that's going to be a guaranteed fail. So at any rate, notice that I didn't put anything about the government database because that's kind of assumed. Government database is just that. It's a government database. You're not going to retire this. Obviously, you're going to retain it. Okay, so now you can get rid of these guys, and you have a pretty complete system landscape, and that came together pretty fast. Okay. Moving right along, now let's hit the data model. So you already have your tab set up over here. So all you have to do is just basically hit page down. And I'd say data models are harder to put together because you actually have the solution, and it's not like you're given these various systems like you typically are with a system landscape. But how do you make it easier? How do you make it faster, and how do you also start? So basically we're asking the same questions, and this is how I would answer them. So first and foremost, you want to start with count contact, right? So that's easy. So you put this process down. Now look, if you will just hit duplicate and you keep hitting duplicate, this is what happens, right? So this is not exactly useful. Now I'm just hitting Command Z. So you will have a diagonal row of these rectangles. Again, not helpful, but if you drag it over to the right, all the future ones are going to be proceeding on to the right hand side. So if you do the same thing for and move it to the bottom, they'll go down to the bottom. So that's basically the direction of it. So if you know that you're going to be putting down, let's say, okay, again, I started with the count and contact. So count, contact, opportunity line items, and then you've got price book entries, and so on and so forth. So you can definitely do it this way. Also, you don't have to go with these rectangles that already have text inside. So you can just go account, contact, boom. Opportunity line item, price book entries. So you just know that you put down 5 rectangles. And at this point, you can select them, move the alignment to the top left corner, and change the text to 8. So 8 would be totally fine, not too big, not too small. You can always zoom in if you want to. By the way, zooming in, you do this with your mouse. And I'm using Magic Mouse over here, so that's the one that comes with the Mac. So word to the wise, by the way, if you're going to be using the Magic Mouse, you actually have to set the navigation mode to trackpad. So otherwise, what's going to happen if you put it on mouse and you're just trying to move things around up and down, so instead you're getting the zooming effect. And that is actually extremely unnerving on the board. Most likely this is what it's going to be set to, or maybe it's going to be on auto. So on auto, you may or may not get lucky. I don't know, but if you truly want to control your environment, what you want to do is just keep it on trackpad. Don't ask me why, that's just the way it is. This is what I found out the hard way. Okay, so you start writing down. So this is account, contact, opportunity opportunity can be op or opti. And over here you've got OLI for opportunity line items. Here you've got PBEs, so you may ask me why PBEs, because over here we're going to have a product, and at the bottom we're going to have a price book. So price book can be just PB. Why? Because this is essentially in the middle, it's a junction object. Okay, and so what else would you have on the left hand side? So you can have asset. Here you can have a case, because case can look up to asset. And over here at the top left you will have lead. Okay, so because you start with lead, account, contact, opportunity as you do the conversion. If you have some sort of campaign situation going on, so this is going to be campaign member. So you could member over here, and over here you've got perhaps campaigns. So campaign is, we can keep it out of the way, because remember you will need to have some space for custom objects as well. Okay, so one of those super useful objects that people forget a lot of times is actually account contact relationship. So now I remember that I have the ACR, but I really would want to have it somewhere midway between account and contact. But these are already in the way. That's fine. You just kind of move them to the side, and now you've got your ACR. Okay, what's next? So what's next is don't try to do this type of stuff and try to move things around. So, well, okay, maybe this will look better. Like, so you're not creating a presentation. You are creating a presentation, but you're not creating a client-facing presentation. You're doing this at speed. So you need to be able to move fast. So you sacrifice some of the looks, some of the, let's just say, quality of the presentation, but you're preserving the fidelity of the presentation, the accuracy of it. Okay, so for this very reason, what you want to do is select a crow's foot. So if your endpoint was on none, you know none is going to be at the very top. You just scroll all the way down to the bottom, all the way to the bottom without thinking. You're not going like, oh, which one is this? So you're going all the way to the bottom, and you know that about fourth from the bottom, there's going to be a crow's foot. And that's all you really need to do. So boom, from here, you just type in CBP because you're going to be using a person account. Okay, well, speaking of person accounts, what do? So this is what I would do with the person accounts. So you create a rectangle, double click on that, type in person. You already have the account in there, so that's fantastic. So you put this at the bottom so that person accounts, okay, that's important to remember. So you put that at the bottom, change it to a dashed line. Doesn't matter what kind of dashed line it is, but as long as it's a dashed line, and move it to back. So in terms of the alignment of the layers, so you can either go like so, and basically hit arrange and bring to front, bring item forward. What I wanted to do is just send to back. So these commands, the keyboard shortcuts, are written in by Lucidchart. Very convenient, very easy to find. So with time, with a little bit of practice, you'll be able to just remember this extremely well. Okay, so now you've got your text over here, and you've got your person account set up. I think you're good to go. Now, one thing to note is that now you've got a couple of rectangles, and now you're introducing some layering. It's sometimes going to be a little harder to select these boxes. However, that's a small price to pay. This way you actually will remember to put down the person account. Okay, so you'll continue from there. So you just draw your crow's foot connections. If person account's in the way, you can move it down like so. And over here you've got your ACR. So boom, you got the ACR connection from account and contact. Now, if this starts getting in the way, you just need to create some space. And let's say it's easier to find that elusive blue circle, and you end up with something like this, and don't freak out. Okay, it's totally fine. You have the crow's foot going in the wrong direction. You just flip it over here. Okay, boom, boom, that's your friend. And so don't forget, as I previously discussed, default OWD is going to be private. Okay, make that prominent over here so you don't have to worry about this. And then you just continue on from there. So this is again all by memory. So this is why I said, you know, PBE should be here, because it's a junction object, especially between product and price book. Plus it feeds the line items very, very nicely. If you even wanted to move this down, I will show you why. So you end up selecting these three guys and moving them down. So that's going to be now, let's see, we're going to move this a little to the left. So this is going to be a quote, and instead of OLI, so you put down QLI. Again, copy select. This is going to be order, and this is going to be order line items. And now you've got yourself almost done over here. So you see how it's like nicely arranged, so everything lines up. That's okay. So work order, and instead of work order line item. Okay. So just remember, some certain ones are not lookups. So those are master details, and you can actually say the rest are lookups. I am missing one over here, so that's just going to be a master detail as well. If you're going to be using master detail a lot, like so, you just basically introduce it by copy pasting. And so you know that all of those are basically going to be looking up to account. So this brings me to my next point. So how do you not overlap the lines? So you can create your crow's feet connections over here. Obviously that's in the wrong direction, but I'm just going to do the same thing as I did over here, and same thing for order, and same thing for work order. So it's all going to be linking back to account. So that's fine. So you can select these crow's feet connections from anywhere, and then you basically flip them, and that will be over here. Okay, boom. Now we're done, and then we've got asset. Product goes to asset as well. ACR can move up, and we also want to have case looking up to an asset. Case is going to be looking up to an account. Again, if you forget something, it's not the end of the world. You can just explain it. You say, oh, I forgot to do this over here. You keep on with the story. Keep on with the story, okay? Like, for instance, price book entry, nobody is going to care if you forget to put some sort of a connection, as long as you pick it up. Or if you're getting a question, just listen to the question, and most likely the judges are going to help you correct yourself. But that's only if you're paying attention, if you are composed enough not to be too nervous. It's okay to have some sort of nervousness. In fact, stress is actually, contrary to popular belief, can be very good, because it will focus your mind. It will keep you out of trouble. That is the primary function of stress in humans to begin with. Okay, so we're almost done over here. So let's just say now we've got campaign member, but notice that campaign member goes either to leads or to contact. So now campaign is a little bit over to the right. So what to do? No problem. So you can just go like this and say campaign is going to contact, and then the campaign member is also going to go to lead. So using campaign member basically to either produce leads, or you're using the contacts for campaign members. So that's how this would go. Okay, so are you absolutely done? Well, not just yet. So what do you do with leads? Leads do not look up to contact and account, and vice versa. None of that happens. You want to show that lead is actually, there's a conversion situation. But how do you do that? So first you draw the crow's foot, because that's what you have. And so you could do one of two things. You draw the crow's foot, then you go all the way to the top. It's the second arrow from the top, and you can also make it a dashed line and call this conversion. Okay, and then what do you do next? So obviously, if you're going to be converting leads, most likely you're going to be converting the leads to account, contact, and opportunity. So if you want to tell that story, you have 3 lines. If you don't want to tell that story, it's just enough to put down 1 line. But without making things too crazy with too many lines, what you can do is just get rid of some of these conversion words. Just keep one, and this is the one exception to the rule, my own rule, that I like. I typically don't overlap the lines, but in this case, I do. So just to make it cleaner, okay? So now everything is lining up. You're telling them that you're going to be converting the lines. And by the way, what I'm also doing is I'm holding on to the Option key as I move my finger up and down. So if I don't, I just move it up and down with my fingers, so it just goes up and down and left to right. But if I'm holding on the Option key, left to right does nothing, but up and down actually does the zooming. And again, I love keyboard shortcuts. So now this gives you your basic, very basic, mostly Sales Cloud, a little bit Marketing Cloud, a little bit of Service Cloud landscape. If this is getting a little too busy, let's say you don't need to have all of these things, you can also remove the crow's feet. Or if you're fine with that, so let's put in some custom object. So custom object in this case, well, why drag a new one when you can just reuse the old one? So instead of case, let's put cust object and _C. Remember, I am just using 1 underscore over here. And let's say the case is going to, so it'll be, case is going to be looking up to the custom object because you will be creating cases against the custom object. So crow's foot, boom, over here. So if you want to do some sort of an external object, it's the same thing. So let's call it external object because I just can't think of a name right now. And you put _X. And so same type of thing over here. Let's go, there will be an indirect lookup to asset. And if you have the time, so you can select all of the various external objects over here and make them one particular color. Okay, so like this. Well, actually that's not going to help because that creates a line color. But in this case, let's go with this type of pink. Your custom objects are all going to be over here and maybe over here and then maybe over here. So whatever has the _C should directly go to your eyes. So one, hit command, hold down command, click on another one, and so on and so forth. Then you know that here are your custom objects. So now you've got the colors. If you don't have the time or if you forget to use colors, that's fine. At least you'll be able to tell the story because you see that there's an _C over here and _X. You typically don't worry about the platform events. You don't worry about the custom metadata types. So you just leave those off of the data model. Now, is this enough? I would say no, it's not enough because now you need to move on to the next line and you put ownership. So that's something that I forgot. So let's say sales person is going to be the owner of this. Okay, great. Again, hit the shift and you've got your salesperson over here. So who is going to be owning this? Again, another salesperson. Here the ownership is going to be service person, and let's just say here, I don't know, it's going to be some sort of a aid. So those are your various actors. So ownership is extremely important. In terms of using record types, you may or may not have time or actually it may be too much information. So typically I do not put record types. Which is the object that's likely to have multiple record types? So first of all, that would be r/t. Let's zoom in over here. So r/t, let's call it household. And now you've got your own business account, and then you already have the person account. So person account can be PA over here, okay? So this is how you would denote record types. And I would say finally, LDV. So LDV is very important to point out. For LDV, you want to make this box small. So you want to put LDV over here. If it's a person account, then you have multiple LDV, large data volume accounts. So you're also going to have that on contact. Most likely, if you have a lot of customers, they're going to buy a lot of stuff. There's going to be asset. Case is very commonly abused object. So that's likely going to be LDV. If you're lucky, like let's just make everything LDV. Now this is easy to remember. If you're going to be selling stuff, then most likely, you see what's happening here? Since these objects over here were arranged very nicely, so then LDV is also going to be, especially if you duplicate it and drag it like so, then the rest are going to show up exactly where you want them to be. So let's say you drag this over here, and then you drag this guy over here. Boom, boom. The rest you don't have to think about. It just kind of happens. So if these are LDV and these are line items, they're definitely going to be LDV. So that's it. You do not need to put down the actual volume numbers. Okay, first of all, they're going to be too small. It's too much work to put down. I would not worry about that. Okay, so this is how you basically grow your data model. And now if you think you've got too much text, you just basically select all, change that to 8. Okay, now you have more space. So that's how you basically construct your data model. Of course, the real thing is much more complicated. It takes a lot longer. This is where the actual craft comes in. But this is the nuts and bolts of how you create a data model, and you can do it fast. So all you have to do is practice, practice, practice every day. At this point, we're going to hit the data migration. Okay, so data migration is actually pretty straightforward. So like you have on the system landscape, let's say in the system landscape you have the main rectangle, and that will be Salesforce. For data migration, you're going to have this one major tool called an ETL, extract, transform, load. And so you drag this already onto the landscape. This can be at the top and the bottom, it doesn't matter. So then most important thing is you're going to have staging, you can call it database, or DB is enough. And then here you're going to have target or canonical database. Okay, so there you go. So you have those two databases. Now you want to create a arrow that goes from left to right, and boom. So and here you put the word transform. Excellent. So for data migration, you're not going to be using crow's feet. So instead, what's going to be useful is to use the arrow. So I'll change that to the arrow right away, so you don't have to do it every single time. So you get your staging database, target database, arrow that says transform, and here you would want to put a data warehouse. So GW, because you would be offloading some data onto the DW before it gets to Salesforce. Okay, easy enough. So that's your basic ETL and DW structure. So on the left-hand side, you will put all the various systems that perhaps you will be loading the data from. And let's say you've got your, okay, and now it's probably a good idea to put this text in the center, or it could be at the bottom, really doesn't matter. So let's see, legacy SFDC. So you can have your ERP Canada, okay? Here you're going to have USA, ERP USA. Now you're going to have some other, let's say, customer master. And over here, you're going to put some other database, okay? So that's the basic representation of the various systems that you're going to have on, that you're bringing the data in to Salesforce from. Horrible English, I'm sorry, but this is just the morning, so bear with me. All right, so now I've got your systems on the left. On the right-hand side, you can also start out by saying, okay, so this is going to be my production, and here I'm going to put 100% of the data. Then I will have my full sandbox, where I'm also going to be putting in 100% of the data, and here I will have my QA, and that's partial. And here I will be having 10,000 per object, or just keep it at 10K, that's fine too. And then you have the lower environments, and let's just say you put dev, and let's see, so that would be 200 MB. Again, that's probably too much information. What they really want to know is how much data is going to go where. It's enough to say that you're going to be putting all of it in production. Full copy sandbox is going to be used for staging, so that's you can even put down staging, and you don't have to put full. Completely up to you. It's whatever helps you tell the story. So the 100% of data and so on and so forth. So that's your most basic data migration diagram. All right, now that you already selected the arrows, you can start pointing those arrows to the ETL. Okay, so this one didn't connect, that's okay. Fix it like so. Again, don't panic, don't freak out if something doesn't work well. Boom, you got this over here, and now this is going to Salesforce. Boom. Again, this is not an ETL that's going to keep functioning. This is just for data migration, and you may use the data migration in the beginning. You'll have multiple runs. That basically the idea is to tell a story going from left to right. Now, chances are, if you've had the legacy Salesforce in place and you already had the ERP for USA in place, somehow they're connected. So there will be some common ideas over there. So instead of just putting legacy, let's say it was Salesforce USA, and you can put down Salesforce Canada. Okay, so let's put this over here, and now we've got our ERPs. Canada, and I'm just making it a little harder. So this is what I'm getting at. So there are going to be some common IDs between these systems, and so the reason that I am using these, I'm changing this arrows, you'll see in a second. So again, I'm going to make it a dashed line and common IDs. So just so that I could either deduplicate the values, or I can preserve the referential integrity between records in the ERPs and in legacy Salesforce. So those are going to be some external IDs basically that were used in place. So now that it helps you tell the story of how do you know which system data belongs to which other system. Okay, so you do something like this. Boom, boom. If it makes sense, great. And same thing for the customer master. There will probably be some common IDs over here. That is going to depend on the scenario, but I would say most likely that's going to happen. Okay, so sometimes you end up with this type of situation where this is some kind of a weird thing happening. So all you have to do is just kind of drag it to the left or drag it to the right. So there's a lot of weirdness that can accidentally happen. If you can't fix it right away, just delete it and start over. It's actually faster to do it that way. So there you go. If you don't like the text appearing somewhere at the bottom, again, you can select all. You can go and fix it like so. Just remember that it will probably lead to some undesirable operation. So don't get hung up on making things look pretty. Obviously, right now, I have all the time in the world. I don't worry about making it on time, so I have the luxury. That's how you can put together the diagram really, really fast. Okay, now on to DevOps. This one is actually not that hard to put together. So let's say you've got your systems over here. You can just basically move them down to DevOps, except now that you should really have them arranged horizontally because we're talking about a pipeline. So this is your basic set, except you may have a dev, and let's say this is going to be dev pro. What's actually more important than to say what kind of a sandbox it is what their name of what you're going to be using them for. So the devs can stay like this over here. So there's multiple ones. Then you can actually scratch orgs over here. Okay, boom. So you've selected these. Group. This is going to be, let's say, a code merge. And then you will have, this is basically, it's a very basic pipeline. Right now, there's not enough stuff in here. So you probably want to put down something like SIT, so for system integration. And then you will have QA or UAT, whichever way you want to do. Probably put QA first. And then you put the, then again, do you really put, use the partial copy for QA? Maybe, maybe not, so just keep it simple. Put QA over here, put UAT over here, and then you have the full and production. So now here you will need the arrows. So over, and then you're just going to go like this, and this is going to be pretty simple. Now, if you really want to make things interesting, so scratch args, that would go in one direction because these are disposable. But in this particular case, you will have back promotions. So instead of just keeping the one directional arrow, if you want to tell the story about back promotions, so you just basically make them bi-directional arrows. And then you have to explain why they're bi-directional. So boom, here you go, the bidirectionality is showing up. And here's your pipeline, but we're not done yet. So typically, what else will you have? You have a training org, except in this case, you don't need a bidirectional arrow. So we're going to change that to none. So training org over here, and then staging. Into staging, you're going to have a hotfix. So if you're going to be lucky enough to have staging, then you don't want to push your hotfix directly to production. So you're going to push it to staging. And from UAT, it goes to training. So that means basically whatever you do over here, you push to training. So now you've got your bidirectionality. And let's say you make it through UAT, then perhaps you'd want to bundle those user stories. Let's say use Copado, and here you would say bundle and back promote. Okay, that's your basic DevOps pipeline. Very simple, very clear. And if you want to start talking about the branching strategy, of course you can do that. So if you want to go into more detail and you absolutely have the time, I wouldn't recommend this. I've done this once before. It didn't really add a ton of value to my presentation, but you can talk about the various branches and so on. So that's where it gets, complicated. So this is where you are using Copado, for instance. So let's say here's your, and I probably will get some of this wrong, and I don't care. So yeah, I see I can't even get the text to show up directly on these lines. So this would be for the branching strategy where you would be doing something like, you create a feature branch from master, and then the feature you're going to create. So let's say this is your target branch. So let's target branch. This is going to be a promotion branch. And this is going to be your feature branch over here. So what's over here? That's unnecessary. And this is going to be your main branch. Okay. So the promotion branch gets created from the target branch. Okay. Boom. Okay. This is annoying, but so first feature branch creates from main. Promotion branch from target, then you're going to push the feature into promotion branch, and promotion branch is going to be merged into the target branch. Okay, and eventually at some point you're going to want to put target branch, you merge it into main, but there will probably be some intermediate branches in there as well. So that's your branching strategy specific to Copado, but you may have some sort of a different system that you're using. It could be GitHub Actions, or you're using GearSet or something like that. So that's your story. That's where this would belong. Okay, but I think this is already too much. So instead of this, what I would do is I would just basically spend the time and talk about the various kinds of tests that you'll be performing at each level. If you have the time to write down the tests, that's what you do. Otherwise, hopefully you'll just remember to talk about that. Last but not least, we have the identity flows. And so at this point, I'm just going to show you how to draw a simple SAML 2.0 SP-initiated identity flow. And then I'll make a separate video on all the other identity flows, and I'll walk you through how to present them as well. So you start out with a blank canvas, of course, so you already have a tab that's called SSO over here. And you don't even need to drag anything onto the canvas. So all you have to do is hit the letter L again on the keyboard, and then you're going to end up with a line. Now, the line can go all over the place. So in order to keep it straight, all you have to do is hit the Shift button on the keyboard as well. So it kind of goes like this. So you hit this, you get a crosshairs, hit Shift, and you will see that it's basically an arrow. And don't worry about the fact that it's an arrow. All you have to do is ignore that part, and then drag it reasonably to the right, reasonable distance to the right, and now you've got your 3 nodes. If this is a bit too close, so you can of course drag it a little further out, and then you're good to go. There's no need for boxes, colors, anything like that. Just keep it super simple. So in this case, it was going to be the browser, so you can type in browser. I like to just type in Chrome, just because it's easier to say, it's easier to spell, and so on. So this is going to be SP, and this is going to be IDP. Okay, that's all you got to do. Now hit L again, and the reason that you wanted to start out with an arrow is because you want to continue with an arrow as well. So there's a couple of ways to go. So you can either keep hitting L and just draw these arrows side to side like this, or you can start doing the actual duplication. So let me show you how that works. So you first draw an arrow, make sure that the ends connect. Then you do duplicate and carry it over like so. Flip the arrows, and then you just do another duplicate, and you drag it over to the right and down. And now you can actually copy these two and bring them over here. Okay, so then you can take this one, drag it over here, flip it, and duplicate this other one. And this is the only one that has arrows pointing in both directions. Okay, so that's your SP initiated flow. Pretty simple. At this point, what I would do is just number. So just simple 1, 2, 3, and so on. 4 goes over here. So you basically, I'm double clicking on the lines and I'm putting in all the numbers. So that's one of two things. So when you're presenting, you're able to say what happens at every single step. The second purpose that it serves is that you know that there's going to be 7 steps, and if you're missing something, that means, well, you need to go revise the flow. That's basically the purpose of the numbers. Some folks actually prefer to go even deeper than that and say, okay, so we're going to go to 1, 2, then 3 is actually going to be over here, and 4 is going to be over here, and 5 perhaps is going to be over here, and then you continue on to 6, 7, 8, and then you got 9 steps. So why? We'll cover that in a separate video. So that's basically copy pasting, and if you don't like that, so what I would recommend is that you don't mess with the pasting, because depending on how much time you have left, depending on how nervous you are, you might just want to stick with the simple directionality here, and it doesn't take that much longer either. It's just that you have to use your hands with greater dexterity. And let's see, so this is the one with the 2 endpoints. Boom. So you see, it doesn't take that much longer. There's no real reason to redraw these guys, but all you have to do is just carry them over here, and that's it. That's your SP initiated flow. Very easy, and the other ones kind of go the same way. I'll add this one thing. So let's say you have another node over here. So let's say this is going to be the partner IDP. That's with IDP chaining. So this ends up being just an extension of this particular flow. So instead of going this way, you will then just basically be adding arrows and extending them over here. So there's going to be just more steps, but that's how this flow can actually scale. And again, I'll do a separate video on just the flows. And thank you for watching. Now that you've made it to the end of this video, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope this content has been useful to you. I really enjoy being an architect, and what I enjoy even more is sharing my experience with others who may find it helpful, which is why I created this channel. I intend to keep this content free and accessible to everyone. Please share this and my other videos with others, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what other CTA related content you would like to see, and I will see you on the other side of your comfort zone.